Get excited, Yeezy Season 10 is here. Aren't you pumped? I thought about making this video for a while. I was gonna do something on, I might even title the video this, something like the tragic downfall of Kanye West, or the wasted potential of Kanye is probably more accurate. But I think, you know, with this weekend's drop of the new Yeezy stuff on his site, it's a good opportunity to talk about this just in the context of what he's doing these days. Just transparently, I'll probably jump back and forth between calling him Ye and calling him Kanye West. Some of it's force of habit. I'm not trying to like dead name somebody, but whatever. I don't want to get into it. He prefers to be called Ye, so I should probably just call him Ye. You know, I want to preface all this by saying that I used to be a huge Kanye West fan of his music and of his clothes. Man, I wonder if I should like go get some of my shoes to show that I'm not a poser. I've sold some of them. But before I get into all this, if you haven't subscribed already, please do subscribe. It really helps me out a lot and helps the channel grow. Love to reach more people and keep making videos and just see what you guys are into. So I don't know if it's surprising to anyone that I was a big Kanye fan, both of his music and his clothes. I think one kind of necessitated the other. But, you know, if you were into like sneakers or fashion in general around 2016, I think that's not really that much of a surprise. And, you know, someone like myself who's into Eddie Slimane and Rick Owens, like, so was Kanye. In fact, I want to say Kanye had a huge influence on people's appreciation for Eddie Slimane, as weird as that is, because I think they kind of butted heads. And I've watched a lot of interviews with Kanye West in which he talks unfavorably about Eddie. But, you know, I've been a fan of his music for, you know, back in high school. Not to date myself, but we were listening to, like, College Dropout in my friend's backyard, just being like, this is tight. And all the way through college, I remember Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy coming out, and, like, that's, like, one of, if not my favorite hip-hop albums. And I'm not, like, a huge hip-hop head, but I think that album is so good. And even, like, Yeezus, I think is, like, I think to say Kanye or Ye is not a extremely talented musician or just, you know, artist, producer, whatever you want to call him, seems ignorant. And I'm not like dissing on someone. If you don't like him, whatever, that's fine. You can at least acknowledge that like most people, professional critics, people who are into music, like hell, Lou Reed wrote like a glowing review of Yeezus before he died. Like most people respect and appreciate Kanye West, Ye, as a musician, or at least his old stuff, which we'll get into that more. But I guess I shouldn't belabor this any longer. The main meat of this story is that over this weekend, or the past couple of days anyway, Ye's website, which he still owns, Yeezy.com. As far as I know, he still owns everything having to do with like Yeezy, the brand. It's not like owned by Adidas or anything, even though that was a long time collaboration. Put up a bunch of new stuff. A bunch of new clothes. And I don't know if this is the official terminology, but people are referring to it as Yeezy Season 10. As far as I know, seasons like 8 and 9 never really came out. They were like, he did like a show for them, but I don't know if you could ever actually buy any of them. And there was some like interesting stuff in there. But if you go to the site, at least at the time of this recording, you'll see a number of pieces on there that are, you know, theoretically for Yeezy Season 10. So this is the whole drop. It's available to purchase. And it's really along the lines of stuff that he's been doing recently. Like he's done little drops here and there. They've been mostly like merch drops, but he has done some stuff like a couple of new silhouettes of shoes. So he did like a clog type shoe, or just like a, I guess you might just call it a slipper, but it was like a one solid piece of foam, the SL01. One solid piece of like, yeah, polyurethane, whatever. That's just like a slipper. And then he did another one, I think it's still on here. Oh, this is actually different. So he did like a more traditional sneaker. And that one was met with some like, you know, some people thought it was dope. Some people thought it was hideous. The main kind of hook of what he's been doing lately has been all of his stuff has been super affordable. And that kind of brings me to feeling two ways about this. I think some of what Kanye is, or I'm sorry, Ye, whatever, is still doing is noble. He said he wants to make like all of his clothes like $20. And granted, there's some stuff on this site that's not $20. There's some stuff on this site that is $60. That's the highest I've seen in just casually looking at it. But that's not, you know, compared to prices that he used to be charging or could be charging. Okay, this boot is $100. That could certainly be worse, right? $20 is pretty affordable, especially for a guy who used to be like making like prestige stuff in the hundreds of dollars. And so I think it is certainly a noble goal to make your stuff affordable to the masses in this way. And apologies in advance if this video is a little scatterbrained, because I have a lot of complicated thoughts about my friend Kanye West. You know, and I hate to dance around it, but I don't want to speak too much about his political opinions. I think I'm allowed to say that Kanye, or Ye, is a Nazi, because he has said that about himself. Now, I've seen a lot of people defend this by saying that, oh, he's not really, he's calling himself that because other people call him that. And so he's saying, oh, if you think I think this, then I'm a Nazi. I think that's cope. I hate to say it. But, you know, there were stories that were like buried from tabloids from years ago in which he was saying that he was like talking behind closed doors about like loving Adolf Hitler and stuff like this. Whatever. I didn't want to get into it too much, but suffice it to say, in discussion of Kanye, and the lost potential there, I think he has done so much damage to his personal brand that this drop that we're talking about right now is basically a lead balloon. Like it's going nowhere. And even the people who are like most stoked about it are kind of just like, oh, hey, there's some stuff. Like if you go to the Yeezy subreddit or like check out Instagram and search for it, there's people being like, good luck getting your stuff to ship in less than 6 months. The most excitement I've seen, and probably the most interesting part of all this, is that he has the Yeezy slides on the site for $20. Previously, I think those used to retail for $70, and then actually they'd sell out a lot of times, so you'd have to pay resale for them. And I saw something interesting, which was somebody saying that they're unbranded from Adidas, obviously, and that this is the only silhouette that Ye owns, which would make sense. I mean, maybe that'll play out differently later on. We might see him integrate some other stuff, but I was under the impression that Adidas owned pretty much everything. So this is very interesting, especially these slides, which are incredibly popular. Like I still see these everywhere. And so that's very interesting. And to drop the price down that much, again, it's really cool. So I'm in this torn position to be like, yeah, good on you, Kanye, making fashion affordable for the little people. Also, you're a Nazi. You know, kind of sucks. I kind of don't want to give him anything. Let's take a look at, I do want to take a look at the pieces themselves, because there's also something interesting going on here where I guess I would say almost all of these are basics. Some have called them blanks. I don't think I'd go that far, because like I'm looking at this shirt right now and it's a little interesting in that it looks like it's like, doesn't have like a typical seam around the shoulders. So it's like a one-piece construction fabric. Now, part of my issue with this is that, and this is an issue I have with everyone who does this, including like Celine or something. Cat is losing his mind. Celine, Saint Laurent, they love to put up stuff with no models. So I can't tell how any of this crap actually looks on body. But I guess my overwhelming feeling in looking at any of this, okay, this is the thing I saw that made me think this is Yeezy Season 10. And it's like the only piece I can see that actually has some sort of print or whatever on it, or design apart from just being, you know, tonal. The overwhelming feeling I have looking at all this is that it's extremely basic and I don't want to say boring, but it's kind of boring. And I guess that one's kind of cool, especially for a $40 like windbreaker or whatever. If I believed that Ye had any sort of like overarching vision for what he was doing, I could get in this headspace and be like, well, he's building his brand up from scratch, right? He's going to start with these staple pieces, these basics, and do something like a Fear of God Essentials or something. That's not bad either. What is that? Is that like a Mac? What is that? And here's the other thing. The site is incredibly minimal and gives you no information, which I can imagine at these prices, this is some of the cheapest crap you've ever seen in your entire life. I don't even know what that is. I think that's like a tube top. I did see this sort of like poly looking faux shiny leathery whatever thing, kind of cool, along with these pieces here. These are the things that I would probably, this hoodie thing, those are things that I think are the most worth it from all this drop. A little quarter zip or half zip there or whatever. Then this thing is more expensive. That's kind of Rickish. I kind of mess with that. Ooh, that's actually kind of cool. Extremely long shirt. I imagine it's meant to be like a dress shirt on a lady, but I can't tell because there's no models. If I do filter by men, I don't see it on there. So there you go. He's got these sock slipper boots on here again, which he's released before. Some socks. It's weird that $20 is like the floor, because you'd think like socks for $20 feels expensive in contrast with everything else. Some shorts. I don't know. These are so cheap I could see myself buying them, but I don't really want to support Kanye monetarily. Yay, whatever. So, and some glasses. The glasses being $20, although those look like cheap glasses you'd get for free at the 3D movie theater. So again, if I were to put myself in the headspace of being like, oh, Kanye knows what he's doing. This is building a brand. This is the starting point. And then from here, we will carve out into other more interesting pieces. I don't know if there's any grand vision to it anymore. I used to defend Kanye all the time to say that, like, oh, he knows exactly what he's doing. You know, he would go on these like megalomaniacal rants right as he's about to launch an album. And it's like, he's just trying to get in the news, guys, you know, so that you pay attention to his album release. But the last couple of years, I've just completely abandoned doing so because it just stopped making any sense. What is he trying to, if you're trying to say like, oh, he's a secret genius, which I do think a little bit he is. But if you want to say like he's a genius with all this Nazi stuff, what's the grand design? Because it just seems to me like he's just tearing his life apart. And this is what I wanted to get to the point of, which is I think it is a real sadness that a guy who I believed in, this is like the Tyra Banks meme, like we were all rooting for you. Like I genuinely was rooting for Kanye West because I would watch his old interviews and stuff and I would see his vision, and I think he was on the cusp of kind of getting everything that he wanted. He just has no ability to play the game at all. I don't know if it's an ego thing or what, which I wouldn't put it past him. But, you know, as someone who works in the corporate field for my day job, I don't think it's any surprise that in order to like make friends and do well with your coworkers and your boss or whatever, sometimes you gotta just take one for the team. You know, somebody talked to you a rough way, you're like, okay, but they're my boss, so I'm gonna let it slide. And you know what? Your boss doesn't hate you after that. And maybe there's some people who, for them, their pride gets too wrapped up in it. But like, I only bring this up to say, like, following his career and what he was doing in the fashion game, he was so wrapped up in wanting other people to take a chance on him, which they did. Like Adidas put a lot of investment into Ye, and they both, you know, profited off of that. Maybe not as much as he wanted, but I remember watching the Yeezy Season 2 and 3, whatever rollouts and these big productions and shows and being like, oh, cool, this is like really interesting. I still think you can go back and look at like Yeezy Season 2 and there's some really interesting stuff in there. It reminds me a little bit of what he's doing here in that a lot of it was criticized as being too like basic. It was a lot of like basics with like heavy distressing on them, but the color palettes I thought were really nice. And quite frankly, I kind of mess with that dystopian aesthetic. I mean, I like Julius, it's no secret. So I guess I feel like he felt really spurned when Virgil Abloh took the job at LV. And I think he felt like, oh, the powers that be want someone who can be easily controlled and manipulated, so they won't go with me. And it's kind of like, yeah, a little bit. And I'm not saying that's a good thing. That's just the way things work in corporate world. I was going to say corporate America, but LVMH is not American. You have to play the game a little bit before they open the door and let you do what you want. And maybe you can make the argument that like at the end of the day, they won't let you do whatever you want no matter what. And that's probably true. But like, look at how people talk, you know, God rest his soul, but look at how people talk about Virgil Abloh and what he was able to do with LV, and even maybe to a lesser extent. But like, I really think Pharrell has done a fantastic job at LV. I really like his stuff. And every day, not every day, I think all the time about what just a cool life that dude has. He gets to make music and collaborate with whoever he wants and make art all day long and work on these great productions for this fashion house. And like, again, just collaborate with artists everywhere. And like, oh, he gets a whim to do this dream project. Done. He's doing it. And, you know, Kanye was so close to that. And he did that for many years. But I feel like he never felt like he was able to break into the echelons of where he wanted to be. And it really just seems like it was because of a lack of ability to play this game, to swallow your pride in any small amount. Look at what he was starting to do with Gap. You know, that could have been a huge thing. But, you know, I watched some behind the scenes videos and stuff where he seemed like he was arguing with the Gap execs and they weren't doing things the way he wanted. Maybe it wouldn't have been anything all that special. But like, I don't know, man. It just feels like if he had stuck to his guns, kept his mouth 10% shut, because he was still wilding out all the time. Like he could kind of say what he wanted. We could have had him still creating clothing that would have been exciting. And again, this is not just me being a hater. Like I Googled this because this just dropped. And like, I'll put up a picture here of like the Google News search results. Kanye leaving his house used to be like, oh, TMZ reporting news and stuff. I looked this up about a new season of his clothing line dropped. And the only thing I saw was like a story about the website shutting down because of traffic problems. So it was like an article digging on his like poor server capabilities, you know? The other stuff is about like his wife being underdressed. Shocking. And that's really sad, man. Like, when you had a guy who was on the cusp of everything, fashion-wise. And again, you may not mess with his stuff, but I think you have to admit that he, for many years, was like the cultural mover for fashion, music, art, whatever. Like, all eyes were on him. And now it just, you know, he drops a new, it feels like fading stars, like merch, a cash grab. And I hesitate to say cash grab because it is all like low priced. But again, this stuff's probably, you know, pennies on the dollar for what he's getting. I have heard like absolute trash quality. I've never had it in hand. I had the Adidas stuff, obviously, and that was good, fine. I can't speak to the newer stuff like the all foam or all poly, whatever you want to call it, slippers or whatever. I can't imagine they're good. So I don't know. This has been a bit of a rant, but I guess I feel like even people who used to be like diehard Ye fans or whatever, like, are you excited about this? Are you going to get these? Because I don't really see much of a reason to, especially when, like, I don't know, there's alternatives to that old like Ye look or whatever. Like, if you wanted, like, the look has evolved a little bit, but if you've ever like checked out like Entire Studios, their website and their whole like look kind of captured what like Yeezy Season 2 was. And now as I like look at their new stuff, it kind of feels like it's like evolving past that. It's still got a little bit of that spirit, but it's like, oh, what would Yeezy have been like if he had kept it going? You know, and they're doing the whole like quasi unisex thing and a lot of oversized pieces, a lot of like tonal pieces. I don't know, check them out, because I think they're doing way more interesting stuff than this Yeezy collection is. So, I don't know. I'm already anticipating getting like a little flamed because he does still have like a diehard fan base. And that's why I'm not trying to say anything like overly political or overly like hating on the guy. I just think we all can collectively acknowledge that like things ain't what they were. And it's just a tremendous wasted potential, I think. Even the, like, I'm not even talking about fashion anymore. Like the music, like I've not cared about a new Kanye album since like Ye or whatever. I think that's what it was called. The titles are getting confusing me at this point. But like ever since, some people would say Life of Pablo. To me, ever since Yeezus, it's just been, I just can't. It feels so low effort and low energy and just bad. It all feels bad, man. I don't know. What do you guys think? Is Ye completely washed? Are you interested in this collection at all? Do you agree that like if he had just, I don't know, stuck it out for a little bit longer or played the game a little bit more, that we might have gotten something really special? Because I think at this point, like, news outlets aren't going to pay attention to him anymore, which it seems like all he wants, just like drum up controversy for people to pay attention to it, and it's not even working anymore. So he basically, like, I don't think he has that capability to like captivate a large audience anymore. I saw he was performing in China or whatever last month. Cool. That feels kind of second rate to selling out. But I don't know. I've been surprised by the amount of people I've seen that are willing to accept some of the things that he said in public. So anyway, long winding ranty video over. If you like long winding ranty videos about fashion and other things, do subscribe, leave me a like, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya.